for yourself, I will change it. But I expect you to think about it. Come to me and say, I thought this and this is reasonable. If you thought this and it's not reasonable, forget it, you didn't get the mark. But if Joy came to me and said, actually, which does it affect? You know, people buy insurance anyway. The fact that there's more or less accidents doesn't change the fact that I have to buy car insurance, right? But it does change possibly the cost of car insurance, so it should be supplied. I thought about it, yeah, that's a good argument, I'm giving you the mark. Everybody? So, sometimes things are not as clear as they could be, sometimes I make a mistake in conception, but I'll give you the mark if you come to me. But as I said before, you've got basically 1 week, not even one, you got the, when I hand it back, you've got that, the following lecture, and the lecture after that, and that's it. I don't want to hear about it. Because I don't want to hear somebody, like for example, Joy doing that, and then 2 weeks later telling her friend, you know, I got this mark for this reason. The friend comes, I'd like the mark. Sorry, you had to think about it. If you can't talk about it, you don't get the mark. You ready? This is the way it is. Number one. So, you know, you do your best, and if it's my mistake in clarity, you'll get the mark. But you must respond within the particular time. And here, by the way, I would change this a bonus to car insurance, car insurers for car referral repairs. That would have clarified. So now when it turned out I wasn't as clear as I could have been, and you might get a wrong mark, but if you do, as I insist upon, and I think it's really important, the exam is one thing. Going through the exam, finding out your mistake is also equally important. So please do it. Most people, a lot of people don't even pick up their exams. A guy literally said to me, you know, at the end of the year, he was at 78. He went and took his final exam, nothing on the final exam. Then he came out with this, you know, from 4 months earlier. Oh, my midterm, I should have had a higher mark. So, what are you talking about? Goodbye. So get on top of it, stay on top of it, everything's cool. Okay, good. That's that. Now we move forward. Oh, we'll get this later. So, we're talking about elasticity. Now, we need to clean up some elements of elasticity. Today, we will get to, hopefully the final hour will have nothing to do with elasticity. In the second last hour, at least half an hour of that, I will be dealing with linear equations dealing with elasticity. That will not be an exam. I'll reinforce this. This exam will cover all the notes up to elasticity, except for, let me point out to you, this. And please understand, you want to talk to me about the exam? Today. I don't want to have any emails about it. When I'm out of here, nothing about the exam. I might put something on the website about the exam or I might not. But basically, you want to talk about the exam? Today. Otherwise, no. Right? Okay, so I said, I wrote it down this last day. Let's do this. The exam will have the format of a sample like this. You will have this kind of thing, production possibility curve. But one change on this, which I'm trying out on you guys. And I said this last time. Forgive me because I have 2 classes and I'm not always sure what I've done. When you look, as we did, and I was explaining to you production possibility curves, remember I gave you a table here, and the table had BC first, Nova Scotia second, and whatever. It was lined up in terms of, in order of the most efficient in the production of apples, I think it was, right? So, I mean, in a sense, when I say to you, which one should you shift to apples, it was pretty obvious. BC was on the far left. You should shift BC first. I'm going to have this. I'm going to say, a farmer has 5 fields, or 4 fields, or whatever it's going to be. In those fields, they can produce wheat or milk, say, wheat or milk, cows or wheat. And the opportunity cost of each field is this. And the opportunity cost of fields are not the same, because one field might be better for pasture, and one field might be better for wheat. So it'll be like I changed this here. I'm going to give you something that looks like that. Now this is different than what I've done before. I'm going to give you that, and my first question will be order it to find out the points on a table on production possibility curve. So watch, because it turns out almost every time I ask something that's slightly different, I might as well gun down this class because it's boring. You know, they can do practice exams, but they can't necessarily think. So you're going to look there and you're going to go, what's the first one? Nothing but wheat, 23, and 0 apples. What's the second one? And in this case, you have to read it over and go, aha, we're going to shift BC, right? The second one is 22 and 5. Everybody? That I want you to be able to do. Now, we've done it. We've talked about it. And this is the way I'm going to do it. The rest of the stuff will be straightforward. What's the opportunity cost of producing wheat in Ontario? 3 apples. What's the opportunity cost per unit of producing apples in Alberta? 4 divided by 2. That's the same as other stuff. So, but just note what I'm telling you. One change, be on top of it. Then we're going to do, as I've done here, this one, except for that little change, I would expect, for example, for you to do this, you probably get 6 out of 8. Because it's just standard junk. It's all in the production possibility. It's all in the problem sets and what we talked about. This, the most important part of the course, perhaps, you'll be lucky to get 4 out of 8. Because you'll not think about it, you'll take, it actually requires a small amount of thought, probably both. This one, even those people who hate the linear equations, you'll be able to do it. It's going to be linear equations, equilibrium, surplus, shortage, quotas, but not taxes. Please, no taxes. So you should be able to get 6 out of 8 of that, everybody. Elasticity could be 8, could be 10 marks, straight down the pipe. In a few minutes I'll cover that and you should be able to do each of these. Bang, 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 bang. It's all the same, just different numbers, right? A couple of interesting things like that. But other than that, not much, right? Then drawing a diagram, we did that last day, we'll do a little bit more. Then the, look at this, I love this question. Isn't it a nice question? Guess how many people got it right on the exam? What do you think? Out of 200 people, how many? I think maybe 3. But let's just ask this question. William Thornton, I'm just telling you something, I'm just reading something, criticized the supply and demand approach of economics in 1869 because a decrease in supply increases price, and a decrease in price decreases supply. How does our understanding of supply and demand explain Thornton's contradiction? Right? So, he says like this, basically. So you're completely puzzled. The guy says, number 1, again, I want you to start thinking. Of course, on an exam, it's kind of demanding because you don't have that much time. He says that a decrease in price decreases supply, and a decrease in supply increases price. Okay, does a decrease in supply increase price? Let us see. Okay, we've got aha, a decrease in supply increases price. But then he says, this is a contradiction because a decrease in price decreases supply. So, does a decrease in price decrease supply? Yeah, go ahead.
No, the supply function remains the same. It's just the quantity supplied.
Change. A decrease in price decreases the quantity supply. We've been hammering away at that over and over and over again. I just showed you this guy, by the way, Henry Thornton, was pretty famous in monetary theory. The guy was pretty impressive in many ways. But he just flat out screwed it up, because he didn't have Marshall's understanding. He confused it. That's, again, another point. We cannot confuse a change in the price with a change in supply, but a change in supply changes the price. Right? It's that simple. You should have seen that. I should have had everybody get it correct. Nobody got it correct. And it's for you to think about why not. Because they don't think. You've got to think systematically, right? Okay, so there'll be some questions like that. I didn't think it was difficult, but of course it turned out to be difficult. And then, as we talked about before, there's going to be multiple choice. These are probably made up myself. But in the last one, the second sample I didn't. I'm going to go through the 3 April-May. The April-May exams on the website, just because it's simpler for me. not the August ones and not the ones from Mississauga. There's 150 there, and I'm going to take the multiple choice pertaining to opportunity, cost, production, possibility, curve, shift to demand and supply, elasticity, and I'm going to ask you 5 of them. I might change them slightly, just because it might not be exactly the same, but it's probably going to be exactly the same. And you're going to be able to do it. Okay, everybody, questions? Now and never again. Don't want to hear any emails about this. You can ask me an email, how did you do this? But don't ask me what's on the agenda. All right, everybody? Good. We're away, yes.
Can you just repeat the last thing you just said?
I could if I had memory. What did I say? Some of you, what did I just say? Yeah, no, that's right. I do have a memory. Yeah, I just said I would take, I'm going to look, there's 150, 50 in each exam, on the April, May final exams posted on Blackboard. You go into Blackboard, left-hand side of the exam repository, go in there. All of you should have done this already. I'm showing you this, you should be practicing. And I'm going to pick 5 of those. They're not a big deal on this exam, but I want you to go through them. So that, how many questions do you think we can ask on the final? You know, out of 150 questions, we're going to ask 50. 40 of them will be very similar to those 150. We might be able to come up with some new ones, but I kind of doubt it, right? So if you can do those 150 multiple choice and understand them, you'll be fine on the final. All right? Any other questions? Good, we've got things to do. Okay, you people look sharp to me. Then write down the essential feature, measurement feature of elasticity. On a piece of paper. When I ask you about elasticity, what is the #1 thing you think about? Which happens to be a green string. I literally mean, if you want to bring a green string in your finger right here, you want to bring strings in your finger, that's totally cool. This one right here is my elasticity string, and it only reminds me to think of one thing. What is that one thing? I'm going to ask you by color. Don't look it up. Deaf for those who look it up. It's a thought process. Okay, Joy, give me a color. Where are you, Joy? Yeah, there you go. Purple. Where's this purple thing? Who do you think wears purple, Joy, in the modern world? People running around in purple? Oh my God, there's one over there. That's the closest we got. Purple. Sorry, that's not probably purple, but nobody else is closer. Tell me the essential feature, measuring feature of elasticity.
Percentage.
It's a ratio of percentages. Quantity demand and quantity supply. Okay, ask the same question in my other class, which is exactly the same as you guys. And ask this question for you guys, like this. Let's just remember it. This question right here, which you saw, I just made it all over again. I said to them, and this is the kind of thing I would have in an exam for maybe 2 marks, right? Explain this. Which is more elastic? We talked about this last day, right? Everybody? This point or this point, the person picked purple, and there wasn't anyone with purple. So we had to go with red, and I asked 9 people. None of them had it correct. Every single one of them picked the lower one, which is wrong, right? Which is wrong. Now I remind you how we go about this. #1, you look at percentage changes. So look here. You say, you sort of do a thought experiment like this. I just start over here. Look, drop the price by that amount. That's about, say it's 10%. Maybe like 15%, right? But this thing increase here is clearly about 20-25%, right? This is elastic. Look at it. Percentage fall, this amount relative to the total amount is about 50%. This amount relative to this is about 20%. That is elastic. Then you look over here. And you see here. Someone got amphetamines for that person just to help them along? Okay, look here. Now, of course, everybody, if you're not thinking, of course, you'll go, hey, look at this. The quantity demanded is greater, right? It's more responsive. Surely this is more elastic. Look at this. same fall in price, much greater change in quantity demanded. This is elastic. Actually, it isn't. This is a fall of almost 50%. No, it isn't. It's about 30%, right? 40%. This fall in price relative to this. And this is an increase of what? 15%. It's inelastic. Must look at the ratio of the percentage changes. And if you do that every time, you will not screw up. If you forget that for a moment, you will. Every single time, right? So, then again, we also found out that now remember we did this. I showed you, you do the ratio of percentage changes. Again, attention. There's different ways of calculating. The ratio of percentage changes, ditch the percentage, and it's change in quantity divided by Q, divided by change in P divided by P, right? And then I sort of manipulated this and showed that that is change in Q divided by change in P times P over Q. That'll be good enough for us right now. And you can see this, the change is always the same. The change, it doesn't matter what P or Q you use, the change is the same. Notice, the elasticity relative to this point is whatever it is. If you went up the opposite direction from here to here, it would be this change over this amount, right? This fall as a percentage of the original is, say, 40%. This increase, if you move from this direction, if this was an increase, this would be about 50%. So, depending on where you start from, the same change would give you a different elasticity. That gives us an insight. It turns out, by the way, an elasticity, a point elasticity, is only at a point, right? One point. As you move along the demand function, the point changes, which is why we have the concept of arc elasticity, but we'll come to it later. And then we do this a little further, and because this is 1 over the slope, it turns out this can be expressed as 1 over the slope. The only time you use this formula I've given you here is when we're calculating a given linear function or some function. It'll only be linear for you guys. So notice, the slope here is constant. It's the same. 1 over the slope is constant, but P over Q changes. P high, Q low, elastic. P low, Q high, inelastic. Again, and as I said, unit elastic always in the middle of a linear demand function. Always in the middle, right? That'll be relevant to us. When we talk about marginal revenue, which I said ignore for the moment in our notes, and we talk about monopolies, I'm going to ask you guys, where's marginal revenue 0? It turns out to be in the middle, right? Because total revenue is maximized. This up here, if this was the middle, I'm going to change this. This was the middle. On this side, it's elastic. As price falls, total revenue goes up. Over here, as price falls, total revenue goes down. Now let me just point out something to you that's interesting about that. Why is that? Because a certain fall in price causes, there's a small proportion of the original price, causes a change in quantity, but it's a large proportion of the original quantity. David Ricardo in 1819 made this observation. By the way, a couple of other guys did, kind of, but not as clearly as this, and it's really relevant. Let's think about the market for computers. The first personal computer, it didn't cost this, but I'll say it did. In 1970, the first personal computer cost $10,000, let us say, everybody? And it sold, let's say it sold 100,000 computers, 100,000 computers were sold, for a total revenue of $10 million. Everybody? $10,000 computer, 100,000 of them, $10 million. Now the computer fell by $1,000 in the next year, let us say, $9,000. But that was enough to cause total revenue, total out sales of computer to go to $200,000. It went up by $100,000, right? So, but now notice, the percentage, the $1,000 drop in computer price would be significant, but it's not because the computer cost $10,000. So that's a fall of 10%. But it caused a 100% increase in quantity of computers sold. So total revenue went up. And then as computers fell by $1,000, if they up to about $5,000, here's the idea. The total market for for computers went up. It's got nothing to do with anything. It's just the way of the world, right? The total market for computers went up. The total sales of computers went up as it dropped. But what happens when computers reach the midpoint? Say at $1,000. Lowering the price of computers below $1,000 now is not going to increase the total revenue of computer firms in the world. It's not. The market is literally saturated. Total revenue will fall. It might increase the profit if they can get costs lower, but this happens with every commodity. At a certain point, if the price drops anymore, the total revenue from sales does not go up. But up to that point, the total revenue goes up. So as you introduce new commodities into markets, there's kind of a natural increase in markets, in sales that occurs. So as I say here, the total revenue increases to this point, it's a maximum, and then falls off. This is elastic, price falls, total revenue goes up. This is inelastic. So another way you could have done this was look at these two things and see, this is to the right of the middle, it must be inelastic. This is to the left of the middle, it must be elastic. Everybody? Again and again and again. But all those things are predicated on the idea of percentage change. Percentage change. Right? Okay, good. So that's that. So then let's go back to this. Here's our first midterm. Questions on elasticity. Now notice them, and they're going to be just like this. Although there might be 10 marks on elasticity, I don't know. This first one is this. You know what it is? It's the formula. Elasticity equals the percentage change in QB over the percentage change in P. How difficult is this? 0.7 equals the percentage change in Q, which I'm asking, over the percentage change in P. Now P falls by 60 relative to 480, whatever that percentage change is, and then you just multiply that percentage change by this, and every percentage change in point demand. Big deal. Here for 2 marks is, what is the percentage change here? What is the percentage change here? Do the ratio, you've got your answer. What about this one? Again, the same thing, except here, this would be, there's an increase of 100 relative to 250, that's 40%. That's the denominator. And quantity demanded falls by 4,000 relative to 3,200, that's 12.5%. It's 12.5 over 40, ta-da. Then again, percentage change, but here we're using the arc, and the arc uses the average price. So it's the same change in quantity, 100 divided by what to get the percentage change? Divided by what? The average price. Well, how difficult is it to figure out the average price? It's 300. So 100 over 300, this is a 33% increase. This is a $4,000 fall, that's the same as before, but over 30,000, right? 5 marks, good, big deal. Then next, what about this? How are you going to solve this? This is what is the maximum price the Maple Leafs can charge and still sell all 20,000 tickets? Let me see. Oh yeah, so it says to you, how are you going to figure that out? What is the maximum price the Leafs can charge and still sell 20,000 tickets? You know the answer. Plug 20,000 in here and find the price. Oh, come back to that. What is point elasticity of demand at 20,000 tickets? How do you figure that out? It turns out you know the price, you know the quantity. What else do you need to know to get elasticity? The slope. Now some people, let's say, I don't know what it would be, I don't really know. Supposing the price is $500, so it's, you know, it's 1 over the slope times 500 over 20,000. Okay, good. Some people don't use that and they try to figure out, well, I've got to get the percentage change. So they try a price of like 450 and get a quantity and they try to show the percentage change. No, 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 no. Just use the formula for the equation. Everybody? Good. Wait a minute now. There's 6 marks. And then there's couple of marks for this. Is this elastic, inelastic, or I'm gonna give you, again, I'm gonna get a color. I'm gonna really think about it, and for 1 mark, I'm gonna be asking people. Tell me, is this elastic, inelastic? The price falling from here to here, is that elastic or inelastic? With explanation, no explanation, you get nothing. Okay, let's have a color, what is it? Orange, okay, you're the closest, orange. What's the answer? Is that elastic or inelastic? It's elastic? And how did you get that? No marks without an explanation, but you obviously you think it's elastic, so what's the explanation? Okay, her answer is it's elastic because it's the upper half of the linear demand function. Not the best answer, but a perfectly good answer, you get a mark. She's right. What's the somewhat better answer? What's the absolutely best answer? Yeah.
It's last week, it's just above the.
No, she does what she said.
Oh,
What's a better answer? What's the essential answer? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It's elastic because the percentage change in Q is greater than the percentage change in P.
Yeah, that's it. In fact, you can look at it. P falls by, what would you say, 20%? Q goes up by, what would you say, 50%? It's over. It's over, it's over, it's over. But I'm telling you, if you don't remember that, you'll be screwed every single time, you know? And I'll just ask you the same question over and over and over again the same way. Concentrated percentage change, no problem with elasticity. If you don't, you'll bomb it big time. It's a very simple concept. Okay, you ready for the real world? Okay, here we go. I'll read you our little friend here. This was the press release, and the other was the report in the Globe. Let me find it. We're gonna clean this up, and then we're gonna go through some diagrams in a minute. I'll clean a few other things up. Let's just see. We want headlines, and here we have this. Okay, this was the same thing. The wrong, by the way, I didn't know this, but one of the students in the other class just immediately, Googled the wrong and checked out the prices, and the wrong is charging $16 right now. But my point is this. Let's just think about this. They dropped their price. This is an announcement. The ROM is dropping their price from $24 to $15. It's actually like, whatever. I'm going to give you a somewhat simpler thing. And blah, 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 blah. And then there's this whole story of talking about Janet Carding, the director and the CEO. We know it's difficult economic times. Looking forward to our centennial in 2014. Our goal is to remain as vital to the community as possible. Our centennial goal is to become more welcoming, more relevant, an essential destination. Our first step is to become more accessible. All this is drivel. If the place goes bankrupt, it is drivel, right? It has to support itself. That's the way the world is. Opening the doors to the ROM would be a great idea. I'd love to see everybody going. I think the ROM is the best part of the city, but if it doesn't make money, it closes down. There it is. All this is just, junk thrown out to the public, basically. It's got nothing else. We want people to come, but we have to make the thing pay for itself, right? And because it's got fixed costs, it's all about total revenue. Our research demonstrated conclusively that many people, especially families, would come if the price was lower. Yes, that's right. But here, you know what? If it meant that the ROM charged $100 a ticket, and they made no total revenue, then if they charged $10 a ticket and everyone in Toronto came, then they should charge $100 a ticket if they want to stay in business. Otherwise, they're not going to, right? That's the way it is. They're maximizing total revenue. Having like $10 a ticket and no total revenue, and you have to close down or close down departments is no good. So now you guys are going to calculate for me. Another type of question I might ask is what you saw already, this. So, first of all, let's say slash its ticket prices from, forget this 40%, from $25. I'll say this to you guys, right? Now my question to you is,